Hey folks, welcome back to the Western Southerner YouTube channel. Today we're going to do a truck camper kind of 102 video, specifically focusing on some tips and tricks on how to take care of and maintain your camper in the wintertime. This is going to include functional pieces for like storage and also for taking your truck camper out and using it, so stay tuned. Folks, about 95% of the people that watch these videos don't subscribe, so I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. Okay, folks, so I live in like a really cold environment. It's been in the negative temperatures. We get a lot of snow up here. And one of the main things that you have to take care of is your batteries, both in your truck and in the actual camper. I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a little space heater over here, and I've got a long extension cord. This truck camper's plugged in right now. It's running the heater, but it's also charging the battery up. Good old-fashioned lead-acid batteries work great, but when it's cold outside, they can kind of start to discharge. And then if they start to get weak and then the battery freezes, the battery can fail, and it's just really hard on them in general. As you can see here, I've got this guy plugged in, making sure that the battery's good and charged up. Now this battery is pretty new. It's a few years old, and it's a big heavy-duty battery. I'm often surprised at kind of how much this battery will drain if I don't drive this truck for like a couple weeks. It's a truck camper, so we don't commute in it every day, and it'll sit around for a week or two sometimes. Recently, I put an AGM battery in my snowmobile and in my other Silverado pickup truck. And an AGM stands for absorbed glass material, I think, but basically they don't discharge in the cold weather, so they're more resilient to the cold. When that battery claps out, I'll definitely put an AGM battery in this truck, without a doubt. Okay, the second thing to keep in mind, if you've got one of these truck campers and you live in a snowy area, is you have to kind of keep all the snow off the roof. I'm gonna put this up here. Getting all that snow off can be a real pain in the butt, and I use this tool right here. It's called a snow rake. Basically, this thing has extendable handles, and you put it up on the roof and scrape all the snow off with this plastic little blade here. Kind of like this. I think that thing was like $60, but it was worth it. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you is a thing called a Mopeka sensor, M-O-P-E-K-A. It's a small little round disc sensor that goes on the bottom of your propane tank, and it gives you a really accurate reading of how much propane is left in your propane tank. Come out here. Your propane's always outside, and it has a vent just in case there's a leak. It vents to the outdoors. The Mopeka sensor is actually on there, underneath there. This is what it looks like. You gotta make sure you get it on the bottom so that it gets a good reading. Apparently the sensor sends like ultrasonic waves or something up through the propane, and it can detect the density difference between where there's propane liquid and where there's air in the tank. So it's supposed to be pretty darn accurate. I'm curious to see how well it works. I've only used this thing for like a month or so, but it seems to work pretty well. Apparently the batteries last like at least a year, if not maybe 3 or plus years. You can also get them to where there's like a little mounted gauge that you can set up in your camper, and you can link multiple sensors up to if you have multiple propane tanks. Pretty sweet little trick. So one other note about propane related things in the wintertime. We all know that in cold weather things can contract, right? And I've actually had the seals on my propane tank contract to the point to where it didn't make a good seal onto the regulator, and I had propane leaking out of my tank, which isn't good, right? Now I was using this kind of like cheapo tank. I did a little research and I found out that some propane tanks have a better seal, and so I use these tanks called Flame King because they seem to have a better seal, and I haven't had any issues with this one leaking at all, whereas before I did have issues. I think it's like the trade-in tanks might be a little bit lower quality, but you want to get a propane tank that's high quality. I like the Flame King ones. You know, I bought it with my own money. I'm not, you know, sponsored by them or anything. I actually had a friend call me like last week who had a concern with a propane alarm going off in his truck camper. So, you know, propane is not something to mess around with. And you definitely want to have your propane in the wintertime for lots of different reasons, obviously. Okay, so another tip with your truck camper. You know, when you put a camper on the back of a truck, it's a lot of wear and tear on that vehicle. That truck's hauling around like 2,000 pounds all the time in the back of the bed. And so you got to have good motor oil to take care of the engine because it's working so hard. I've almost always used the Mobil 1 oil for many years, had good luck with it. I used the extended performance kind because on the data sheet it's got some more chemicals and better base oil or something. So recently I switched to the Pennzoil. It's got to be the Ultra Platinum oil. This stuff has really good cold flow. It's got a lot of detergents, dispersants. It's just really good oil. And according to some of the research I've done, it's actually kind of a lot better than that Mobil 1, which is shocking because I've always used Mobil 1. So I use this kind of stuff. It's about the same price on Amazon a lot of times, about 30 bucks a jug for this 5-quart jug. So it kind of goes without saying, but in the wintertime, I always bring my generator too, just so that I always can plug in a space heater and have a secondary heat source if something goes wrong with the propane. And this also makes sure that the battery stays good and fully charged in those really cold weather. I've done some other videos on this as well, but I'll oftentimes rig up like an extended runtime hose on a small gas can here. You use like a bulb from a boat gas tank and, you know, essentially run a hose from here to there and it'll run all night. This thing's only good for about 8 hours on a full tank of gas at 750 watts. So you want to not have to refill in the middle of the night, or if you want to run it higher than 750 watts, you know, get you a gas tank and rig up one of those extended runtime setups. So in the wintertime when we use the truck camper, we carry our water in these water jugs. We carry this big one, and then we use this one because it's got a little spout that you can pour from. And then it's really nice to have a little wash basin that you can use as a sink in here. We've got this one. This is cut out so we can lay it down. But we use this as a little wash basin so we can do our dishes or, you know, things like that. Then a lot of times, you know, we can just pick it up and, you know, dump it out the door on the ground or something. We don't pour that water down the tank, obviously, because then it could freeze in the water lines. It could, you know, can freeze in the tank and cause issues. The tank just has some RV antifreeze in it. It stays in there all year round until the springtime or really the summertime out here, when I kind of de-winterize the camper. We'll fill the water tanks, and that way we can use the shower and stuff. So I've mentioned this before, but I always carry a thermometer with a little sensor that can hang on the outside. So it's nice to know how cold it is. It says it's 71 in here and 37 outside. Okay, this next thing isn't something I've done yet, but we're gonna go outside and I'm gonna kind of show you what I'm thinking here. Okay folks, these are called torque lift tie downs. This is how the camper attaches to the truck. One of these tie downs mounts to the rear receiver hitch, and then these chains go up. And the other one mounts right there to the frame, and they go up there. Now these tie downs are really awesome, right? I mean, they're like $1,000, they're pricey, but they're super sturdy. The camper is not going anywhere with these things on there. Come from the factory with a really heavy duty powder coat on them. And they are kind of starting to wear off, as you can see, right? There's kind of some rust forming on there. This one's really getting rusty down here. You can kind of see the rust there. So I've been kind of thinking about how to manage that. I guess one way would be to, you know, take it off and sand it down and put another coat of paint on it. But I was thinking about using some of this like CRC brand spray wax that you use to undercoat the bottom of your truck in the wintertime. Apparently the CRC brand is pretty darn effective, and, you know, water and stuff doesn't really affect it. It stays on there. So that's something I've been thinking about buying to kind of spray on here. If nothing else, just to get me through to the springtime, kind of keep that corrosion down, and then maybe I can kind of reassess, sand it down, and put another coat of paint on it. So even though I scraped all that snow off, there's quite a bit of ice up here on the roof still. And I've got it kind of parked at an angle, and I've got the heat on in hopes that it kind of melts off some of that ice and it drains. There's really a lot coming off up there, as you can see. I rolled this thing up today and I was really surprised at how heavy it was with all the ice on the roof. And that's after me scraping the snow off with our snow rake thing here on a regular basis. Okay, folks, so a few more things I always bring. I mentioned this in other videos, but I feel like I should just say them. You know, I always bring a hair dryer. I got a hair dryer from Goodwill, just because you never know when you might need to thaw something out. Obviously, we need to run it from a generator, but I always bring a hair dryer. I always bring an extra little small camp stove and a big thing of fuel, just in case I have some issues with the propane stove. I can heat up some hot water and have my coffee in the morning. In addition, I always bring a big tow strap for this thing. Not your normal tow strap, like a big thick one, right? This thing weighs like 10,000 pounds. I bring a shovel in case I got to shovel some snow or some mud. And I always bring a pretty heavy duty air compressor I can plug into the cigarette lighter in case I need to re-up a tire, or if for some reason I get in a bad situation, I need to air down my tires, I can inflate them afterwards. Last thing I'll say too is I use a 50-foot extension cord with the generator. The Honda generators are pretty quiet. A lot of these new generators are quiet, but you're gonna wanna be able to put that thing like 50 feet away, and having a long extension cord is really nice so that you can just sleep a little bit better at night. Folks, I hope this was helpful. Just a quick video on some other thoughts about using your truck camper in the wintertime. Hit like and subscribe, and stay tuned for next week. Take care.